For today's episode, we'll be speaking with Tiffany Camilleri. She's had a unique personal experience with psychiatric medication for over a decade, and today we'll be speaking about tolerance, dependency, the healthcare system, and more.
Before we get into the process of you getting on and off benzos, can you give us a bit of a background of your mental health growing up?
Okay, so when I was about, I would say 12 to 14 years old, I started feeling certain symptoms. I was going through a rough time. That was a dark time of my life. And I started getting, back then I didn't know it was anxiety. Anxiety, depression. I didn't know I was a kid, you know. And I remember I reached out to my parents and I ended up going to therapy. I was really young, so it was more of like a venting session back then. But I needed it. And I remember my therapist when I was 14 years old, she told me, I highly recommend that you see a psychiatrist. And I was like, what's that? Like,
You're
I
still
feel
14?
like, yeah, I was still 14. I mean, I'm 25. This was, we're saying 11 years ago. I feel like growing up, we didn't have much education about it at school either. Like now they focus on it more. But I remember when I went to the psychiatrist, I used to go quite regularly at the beginning because I was quite bad in terms of like my depression was really, really bad. And my psychiatrist at the time told me, listen, I'm going to put you on all these meds. And he gave me a cocktail of medication. He gave me a lot, but I didn't know what I was taking. It was, first of all, I was a minor, so it wasn't in my control. I couldn't say no. It's not like now. And I didn't really look into it. I wasn't good. My mental health wasn't in a good state, so I was just saying yes to it. I thought he's a doctor, he's going to help me, it's fine.
Because that's the thing, you look at them as professionals, so you're like, all right, whatever they prescribe you must be good.
Exactly. And my parents were coming with me to these appointments. Again, mental health literacy wasn't big back then. We didn't really know about these things. I don't know anyone who was taking at the same time that I was. So I was just taking every single day, morning, afternoon, evening, different doses of different medications. Because I was a minor, my parents were asked to prepare the medication for me, Terja. So I never even saw the boxes of what I was taking. But I know that I was taking antidepressants, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, the benzos for short, and they gave me sleeping pills as well. So I was...
That's a lot for a 14-year-old.
Yes, I was really, really knocked out. Like that, to be honest, I don't remember that part of my life that much. It's quite a blur, but like no wonder looking back. But that's pretty much it.
Okay, and leading up to kind of you having the realization and saying like, yes, I should speak to a doctor about this, or I should bring this up to my parents. As a kid, sometimes it's difficult to tell whether or not something is wrong, what is normal.
Especially if you're still like 12 or 13 years old, you're still adapting so many things at once. You're still literally growing up. It's like the peak of like when so many things are changing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So to recognize something
developmental
like
time
that
in
and
your
to
life.
recognize that you need to maybe ask for help, even taking that first step it can be scary, you know?
To be honest, I didn't think that, like, when I spoke to my parents and I opened up to them, I didn't think it was going to lead to therapy, to a psychiatrist, to medication. So it was more like, listen, I'm drowning, save me. You know, I was a child, I needed help, and I spoke to them. Omnala, they knew the resources and what's not, you know.
And this doctor that you went to, that prescribed you all of this medication, was that the first doctor that you went to see?
Yes, he was the first psychiatrist I went to see.
Okay.
To be honest, at the time, he still is known to be one of the best psychiatrists on the island. He's very well known. I don't agree with his practices at all, but that's my personal opinion. I worked in the psychology sector as well, so I know the ins and outs of the system. And there are certain things I don't agree with this specific doctor, but that was my experience. For other people, I know that, you know, going to him helps them, and that's understandable. I just don't agree with giving a 14-year-old that much medication without giving the information. So
all at once.
All at once. And he never told, like, he explained, the ma explained. He would tell me, this is going to help you sleep. this is going to make you feel happy. This is going to make you feel less anxious.
But were you ever told the side effects that you could have gotten from these pills?
He used to tell me sometimes. Like, I remember there was this one pill he gave me. It was an antidepressant. He told me, I'm going to switch you over to this one. I'm like, why? And he told me, because it's stronger. He said, but just know that there's a 1% chance that it will not agree with you. And things will get really bad. You will get worse. He said, if it happens, which it probably won't, let me know ASAP. And I was that 1%. I told him, he was like, I remember I kept telling him, listen, I'm really, really struggling. Like, I'm getting out of bed and I don't want to live, literally. I told him, and I wasn't this bad a week ago without these meds. And he just dismissed me. He told me, okay, let's up the dose and double it. I told him, I'm telling you, it's not doing well for me. Can we remove it, change it? And he's like, no, I know you best. I'm your doctor. The whole
And then you feel so helpless at that point, especially if you're so young. What can you do?
I couldn't say no. I had no choice. The fact that you're a minor, you don't have... Certain things are not in your control. You cannot just say no. He will speak to the parents, the guardians, and they have to be the ones to force you to do it, literally. I remember him telling my parents in front of me, force her to take them. Like, if you have to shove them down her throat to do it. Thankfully, they never did, you know what I mean? It's quite messed up in that sense, unfortunately.
What stood out to me, again, I'm no expert. I think none of us over here are experts, but from the basic understanding I have of psychiatrists and like what medications they can prescribe, so on and so forth. I understand the difference between antidepressants and benzos.
Okay.
What sticks out to me is that prescribing benzodiazepines to a 14-year-old, like benzos, correct me if I'm wrong again, guys, but I believe that benzos are almost a quick save for a very big problem, essentially. So if you're having
Can we, like, since we're talking about this, can you explain a bit what benzos are? Because I'm sure a lot of viewers even won't know.
I'm surprised, to be honest, you know the difference. Because usually that's a question people ask me a lot. They're like, I'm taking antidepressants, are they the same? And I go, no.
No.
So basically we have, I'm going to try to put this in layman's terms. So obviously I am not into medicine, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, none of that. This is my research. I had to. We have neurotransmitters in our body. You have oxytocin, you have serotonin, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Antidepressants work on typically serotonin. They kind of balance, so to speak, the levels of serotonin in your system. Benzodiazepines work on GABA. It's called GABA.
Okay.
It's what calms down your nervous system. So it's going to calm you down. If you have anxiety, it's very, very normal. You go to a doctor, it could be a GP, it doesn't have to be a psychiatrist. And they give you, like you said, sometimes it's a quick save. I was never told, listen, be careful, you could develop an addiction. Issa fil-verità, I never took more than I needed to, but I never missed a dose because I couldn't. He used to remind you, miss it, because you're going to be really bad. So I've never missed a single dose in my life, ever. And the older I grew, I was like, listen, do I need to be taking this much? At this point, it's just a habit.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, I heard my pills in my box. I go, time for my medicine. But it shouldn't be that way. At the end of the day, it's like, it's not natural. You're constantly feeding your body something, and then your body doesn't know how to regulate itself after so long. And I feel like that's what happened in my case.
And that's the thing that I read about, like, the most is the addiction side of it. That typically, let's say somebody is suicidal, for example, then maybe they would prescribe them benzos for a certain amount of time because, like you said, it's going to relax your nervous system. So that is like, in case it's that bad, there's this that will like physically shut off like the negative thoughts and like relax
it suppresses
your
a
nervous
lot,
system.
it dulls things down.
Like the thing that I read was essentially, if you have a prescription for benzos, they call it a prescribed heroin, essentially. So if
It's
somebody
so
wants to kind of like chill out in the deepest sense possible by, you know, shutting down your nervous system, then take benzos.
Some people, I mean, let's face it, there are benzo addicts out there that bought from the street, not prescribed.
Yes,
In my case, it's prescribed harm, like, but there are people who are addicted to benzos, that they just buy off the street. It's not a good thing. Like, either way, it's not good. But like you said, people used to shut off.
Yeah.
So what happened then? Like, as you were growing up, you were taking all of these meds. When sort of did you realize and start doing something about, like, Isma, maybe I shouldn't be taking this amount?
All right, I started taking all the medicines when I was 14. And then I would say at about 17, 18 years old, I started questioning the fact that I realized it's more of a habit than me needing it. I started asking still the same doctor. I used to tell him sort of, do you think this is still necessary? Should we lower the dose? And he always tried to keep me on them. He always talked me into staying on them, so I just trusted him. And then one day, I started reading and I started realizing, like, no, it's not normal to take certain medicines for so long. Like, this is something, at least I was never told. Benzodiazepine should only be taken for a maximum of 8
that's
to
what
12
I read.
weeks.
You're not
only.
meant to take benzos for that long.
Like that I was never told.
Yes,
And that, I think, like, it's really, when I found out, it hurt, man, because I felt angry. I was like,
Lallo.
I found out 3-4 years in.
As a kid.
As a
This
kid,
person's just-
yeah. I thought, you know what, I was still 18, now 25. So we're still talking 7 years ago at this rate. But even back then, I was angry. I said, "Wara now."
Alla. U very raġun, tipo, you found out something like that and you find out by doing your own research, it's not even someone telling you.
It's the informed consent, I think, that was a problem. Because had I known all these things beforehand, I would have at least thought twice.
Yeah.
Or when I was reaching the 12-week mark, I would have thought, listen, let's slow things down a bit. More she keeps upping it.
And I'm assuming your parents weren't told either.
No,
Għax kieku
Kieku they
tipo,
would
since
have
you were a
told me.
minor, maybe you didn't have the power to say that, but if they were informed, I'm sure they would have.
No, we were never informed of that by this specific
That's true.
doctor.
And then what did you do when you found out that you weren't meant to be taking them for so long?
After that, I remember I told this doctor, I'm not coming to you anymore. It became a whole scene. I was angry. Let's put it that way.
yeah.
It didn't end well with him. And I just walked out, never went back to him. I went to like 2 or 3 other psychiatrists. And then I ended up at the one I'm going to right now, who is he's honestly so good. Like, I know other
Breath
people.
of fresh air after that,
Yes.
that's imagine.
And I think the main thing about the psychiatrist that I go to now that I find so good about him is that he listens. It's not brushing off what
It's
I'm
not just,
saying.
I'm the professional, you have to listen to me. It's,
Yes.
okay, what's going on? Let's work on this.
Exactly. Like, there's an element of patient empowerment, we call it. It's not just, listen, you have this, it's going to make you happy, take it. He'll discuss, he'll say, this can happen, you can get these side effects, you can also get this, which is good. There's a constant, conversation about things.
Did he take you off benzos?
He's helping me get off them.
Okay. So you're currently going through the process
Yes.
of getting off them. What's that like? Because I've heard that obviously when you're so when you've been taking it for so long, obviously it gets harder and harder to get
Yep.
off them. Like you're
And it's a
reliant
lengthy
to a degree.
process.
Yeah.
So
often-
what's like the main kind of side effects that you've been noticing?
And how
of
long
that?
has it been? No?
Mena, I started getting off them in December 2022. But I spent, I would say, 2 years doing research before actually taking the plunge to make that first reduction. So I was doing a lot of research and I was in between. So this happened when I was, this was in 2022. I was 23 years old. something
Makes
like that.
sense. Makes sense.
Yes, maths. Quick maths. But I remember I was getting a lot of symptoms here and there throughout the years. I used to go to the hospital a lot for just checkups, as
Yeah.
and there was always a problem with my blood works. Always. It's either too much of this, too much of that. And I used to tell them, I think it's the medicines. Which one, I don't know. If it's the benzos, I don't know. And they used to tell me sort of, I don't think it's the case. Speak to your psychiatrist. So I was going around the medical system constantly, going to Malta going privately, going to psychiatrists, going
So
to
frustrating
neurologists.
when you're just looking for help, asking someone to help you out, and each one refers you to someone different
Exact,
or
because
keeps on dismissing
no one knows
you.
how to, not no one, but it's hard to find someone who really understands what benzos do. good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to prescribe, but it's so much harder to de-prescribe. That's the problem. And the question is, why are you why are you getting off them? When are you going to get off them? So I was saying, listen, I don't need them anymore. I don't have anxiety. I'm not depressed. I haven't been depressed, thank God, for years. I haven't had anxiety in a long time. Panic attacks, I was getting non-stop. But eventually I realized it was because I developed a tolerance to the pills. Like that was something not even the psychiatrist knew, unfortunately. I used to go to them, tell them, listen, I'm getting 3 panic attacks a day. At the same day, every time. This doesn't make sense. And they used to tell me, are you like stressed before? And I said them, no. So they referred me to a neurologist to see if I had epilepsy, because then I started getting seizures.
Oh my God.
And they told me it's non-epileptic, so it's psychological. I said them, but I'm not stressed. I was fine, genuinely. And they were like, maybe it's at the back of your head, it's in your mind, and this in your mind talk, I hate. It's like, listen, I know what's going on. I understand there's the subconscious, but I'm fine. So there has to be something. And all I was pinpointing it to at that point were the benzos, because I had gotten rid of the antidepressants, the antipsychotics, and that was the only medicine I was taking. But it was hard because even the doctors didn't want to get me off them, and it's not something you can do by yourself, because it takes long to get off them. So
it's a rehabilitation process, no?
Supposed. It's not really. I mean, there's no center, there's no group.
Exactly.
There's no specific doctor you go to except a psychiatrist.
It's around the effect you're mentioning, like getting panic attacks, having seizures, that can be intense, man. It's a lot to deal with.
The seizures can be bad.
What was that like for you?
It was a long time, and it was hard, man. As in, you just go day by day. I was still at uni at the time. I remember I'd be in a lecture, mid-lecture panic attack. I used to walk out, smoke a cigarette at most, try calm down. Like, what else can you do, you know?
Check.
Then I would have to drive home. Like, if I get a panic attack while I'm driving, or a seizure. No, it was stressful in that sense, because I used to think twice about going
It's
out
like
at a point.
the only reason, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only reason you were stressed was because of all of that was happening.
Pretty much, It wasn't like my own problems anymore. It was, this medicine is messing me up. How and why, I don't know. Doctors don't know either. We're all running in circles trying to figure things out, and no one's finding the answers.
How did you feel that, and sorry that I'm putting it this way, but you must have felt that these doctors just prescribing this cocktail of pills to you, did you feel like you were like this fucking social experiment kind of thing?
Honestly, I used to say this all the time. I say, I am a guinea pig, and I don't want to be this guinea pig anymore. Like, taking me to different doctors, having to explain my situation, them going, that's happening, that's possible.
Yes,
listen, I understand that you're obviously not going to know everything about every single topic and whatever out there, but at least listen and try to help me. Because I was ending up spending a lot of money as well, going privately.
It's expensive. Psychiatrists are expensive.
I was going to neurologists in the meantime. There were a lot of health issues.
Even like all the tests you had to do to see where these seizures are coming from. Like when in actual fact it's the benzos that you were spending money on. But
I wasn't even 100% sure it was the benzos, because the doctors were very convinced that it was not the case. So different types of doctors, GPs, psychiatrists, neurologists, people at nurses, they all used to tell me, m'għandux jasam, ma jagħmlux daw l-affarijiet, dawk jikkalmaw kansi, they're not going to induce a panic attack. More I developed tolerance. When you develop tolerance, like, your body becomes dependent to the meds. It doesn't know how to regulate itself, and it can become counterproductive.
Because the only way to stop that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if you up your dose.
Yes.
No? Because your body gets like...
And then it's a vicious cycle, because then the same thing will happen, then you need to up your dose again.
And they used to tell me, up it, and I said them, I've already done this before, I'm not going to up it, because it's going to get worse.
It's simple, because it's your metabolic rate. In that sense, like if you take this 1 milligram pill, for example, for 2 months, your body's going to be like, okay, we're tolerant with that now. So you need to up
more.
it.
So I was given these meds at 14. My body was still learning how to regulate.
You must have been on one hell of a dose by the end of it, Madonna, for 4 years.
I was on a lot. I don't remember like the maximum dose I was on, But I remember at a point I was taking 20 pills a day. That's no joke.
Madonna, man.
Ma.
I know of like proper fucking sick people that like used to take 20 pills a day. You know what I mean? Like people that are dying essentially.
It was very strange in that sense. Even going to Mater Day, and you'd be put in a specific like what you call it? Put in like a department. Like I used to go, for example, to the endocrinology department at a point, and they used to be like, "Għandek id-diabete." I'm like, "No." They're like, "No, why are you here?" And I'd be surrounded by typically older people.
Tibda tajt xed namel
And I used to feel really weird. They're like, "Miskina, di, miskina," like.
Thank you.
Like,
okay.
I'm like, it's complicated. I'm not gonna tell you, like.
Mux ekku. And then how was the decision taken to get off benzos?
I had spoken to the psychiatrist I go to currently, and the first few times we spoke about it, he wasn't sure either. He was doing his research, that I know for sure, and I really appreciated it because I felt heard. I was also doing my research, and again, you never really know if, like, for example, the panic attacks and seizures, we weren't sure if they were coming from the benzos per se for a long time. So I stayed on them, and even he instructed me to.
So how long did that last? Like the panic attacks and the seizures?
I'd say the panic attacks lasted like 2 years, the seizures a year, but yes.
That's quite a long time.
When I look back, it's 3 years of my life taken away sort of with all that I didn't realize. But it took me a while to pinpoint it. And then when I spoke to my psychiatrist about it, I remember I started looking at rehab centers, because in Malta, me and my psychiatrist could not find the resources that I needed. So I started looking, me and my parents, my family, were looking at rehab centers abroad, and my parents were willing to, pay that money and help me.
At least you had that support.
Thankfully, yes. Because I don't know what I don't know what I do without them, honestly. But I had found a rehab center in Scotland, and I was in contact with them, and they were going to take me on. And they said in 3 months they could get me off of the medication. It was obviously very expensive. And I remember last minute they pulled out. They said, "We feel like your case is too complicated, too risky." And I didn't take it well, because I thought it was my only shot at it, seeing that there wasn't really the resources I needed in Malta. And I felt really, really helpless. Like,
you can't do anything. There's nowhere you can go that can help you.
I felt really helpless, because in Malta, you're not going to go to a rehab center for this stuff. And abroad, even abroad, it's hard. In fact, now that I'm 1 year into getting off them, I've learned that it's not even a good idea to go to rehab usually, because it's something you have to do slowly, really slowly.
When you said we can get you off them in 3 months, at first I was like, you just said you've already been a bit over a year and you're still not done, so 3 months sounds...
Exactly. Looking
someone
back,
off. I'm not an expert, but...
But it's known, like, if you're going to rehab because you have a heroin addiction, they give you morphine for a while, and then they start to decrease the dose that you take over years. Like, you still, when you're out of rehab, you need to drive to whatever clinic it is, and they have your prescription for a certain dose of morphine. And this is years we're talking about.
Exactly.
The 3 months is...
And I don't even think all rehab centers, but I'm not sure.
No, I have absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea.
So I remember when I was speaking with this place in Scotland, I told them, will I be with other people getting off of benzos? And they told me, no, you'll be with the alcoholics typically. Because when alcoholics stop taking alcohol suddenly, the withdrawals are very similar, because it works on the same neurotransmitter. Benzos and alcohol, they are central nervous system depressants. They calm you down.
And what are the withdrawals like?
So, they're literally endless, so I don't even know where to start, but it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
I know others who are getting off of benzos through online forums. I don't know anyone in Malta, so...
Hit me up.
Yeah, I need a friend. I need a support buddy. I speak to like people on forums. They're older. Most of them are like 50, 60 years old, and they've been taking them their whole life.
It's
So
true.
I still feel out of place in these communities. But what did you ask me? Wait, you asked me how long it takes.
No, how the withdrawals are.
It varies from person to person. Like, one of the most prominent withdrawal symptoms is insomnia, which I don't get, for example.
It's true.
Nice.
But everyone else I know in this community gets. Like, there are people who don't sleep for a week, and they'll
Lallo.
be sick and going to work. Some of them have kids. And it's really hard. In my case, I never got insomnia. With me, it was the opposite. I used to fall asleep randomly at a point. It was really bad. I'd be driving, boom, fall asleep.
Way.
I had to go to a neurologist, obviously, but that was a phase and then it stopped. So withdrawals come and go. They're very different. For me, I noticed, like, what I do is I started on 20 milligrams of Valium. Let me recap it a little. Before I started reducing, I was taking 1 milligram of Klonopin, it's called.
Okay.
It's a benzo. So I was taking 0.5 in the morning, 0.5 in the evening, straightforward. But when it came to reducing, I couldn't cut the pill any smaller. Like, how trap ħatġi, you know? So they told me switch to Valium. And 1 milligram of Klonopin is equivalent to 20 milligrams of Valium.
Lallo.
And that's when I realized, whoa, I'm taking a high dose here, and I don't even know it.
Bros just switched up currency, like.
Yeah, man, yeah. And I had tried in 2020, I had tried to get off of them myself. I remember I wasn't on Valium yet, I was on the other brand, and I got seizures for like 10 days. It was so bad. It was so bad. I thought I was going to die. No
What
joke.
would the seizure
That's
feel
so
like?
scary.
Seizure, oh my god. For me, I would know it's coming because I'd get literally goosebumps all over my body.
Istra.
And I go, oh, time to sit down. I would sit down and I just start shaking. Sometimes it lasts 20 minutes, sometimes it lasts an hour. The longest I had was 4 hours. I was like, I can't take it. I need to go to the ER, man. I ended up at the ER like 4 times. But personally, I didn't find help there. Because they were like, the first thing they typically ask is, do you take any medications? And as soon as you tell them, I'm taking benzos, they tell you, when you go to a psychiatrist, we'll speak to him. And you're just there in the ER being monitored. So unless I get a flare-up during the seizure, they just leave me there, sort of. There's nothing they do. Because they can't, the other option is they would tell me, we can give you a benzo to calm you down. I'm like, no, I already have benzos, don't give me more, you know? So it was quite bad in that sense. And I remember I told my psychiatrist, I told him, listen, I tried to get off them myself. I got Sheba seizures, I can't do this. I feel like my heart's going to give in or something. Because when you're in a seizure, you're on overdrive, come doing 4 hours shaking, my eyes are rolling backwards, it's not nice, man. Even my family, I'm sick and taking care of me. And I'm
It
just
must be
there.
frightening for them seeing their daughter like that as well, your parents.
I can't even imagine it. Because I was the one experiencing it, but I can't even imagine how it was for them. It got to a point where like I learned how to control the seizures. Like I used to I would just sit down, I'm just there shaking, like get me something with salt, please. Some Bovril, please.
It's like, let me see if I can make a cup of tea while having a seizure, for example. Just start pushing yourself every time.
And then when you swapped to Valium, then how was that?
Switching to Valium, for me, it was okay. I didn't have any side effects. And then once I switched, I waited a month, so my body like gets used to it. Like, well, new drug in the house, let's be careful. And then I started making cuts. So from 20 milligrams, I went down to 18, wait a month, go down to 16, wait a bit more. And every time I would assess how it affected me. So if I saw that I got withdrawals and they were hard, I would reduce a bit less the next time. And now it's been a bit more than a year. And I'm down to 7.5.
Congratulations.
That must feel so good after so many
100%.
years.
Well done.
It does. It's just, I know that the lower I go, it is getting harder. I do feel it. I used to get less withdrawals at the beginning. And it's also how you cope with them. That was a really huge factor. There were certain withdrawals I didn't know how to cope with. So I'm trying to think of an example. Like, I don't know, something as simple as irritability and mood swings.
I heard that. Apparently,
No, that's inevitable.
like everyone around you is just annoying. Like,
It's bad. No. When I make a cut of my dose, I spend the next few days in, typically, just in case. Like, I realize I still do. I get very overstimulated. Like 10 days in after a cut, things start bugging me. Like something simple as I hear it really loud, man, really loud, or I get tinnitus randomly. That's a common withdrawal.
It's what?
Tinnitus.
the ringing in your ear.
Yes. I got used to that, but the first time I was like, oh, what's this? Watching a film, I just start screaming. Now I got used to it. I go, you just hear, and it just keeps going on. You just wait for it to go.
You're saying now it's getting, the withdrawals are getting tougher now that you're on 7.5.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
l-aħħar ftit.
Yes, they do get a bit more intense in that sense. So something like that, the ringing in your ears, happens more often. But that's something I can deal with. At least I know that I can still go on with my day, you know? It's more like sometimes I get with certain cuts, I get pain.
Yes.
And the pain, yes, that hurts. Like, obviously it's pain. But like, it's hard because sometimes I just need to stay in bed. Like, I'll just be bed bound.
Well, what pain would you get? Like migraines and stuff like that?
Not even. It's just my whole body hurts, man. I get
Okay.
body aches. I just need to lie down. Like, I'd wake up in the morning feeling like a zombie. And it's not like I wouldn't have slept. I would have slept like 10 hours, like deep.
How often does that happen? Like,
Usually it happens like 2 weeks after I make a cut on my meds. So it's been 2 weeks, for example, since I made like my last cut. Touch wood, things are going well.
Great.
I don't want to like jinx it, but things are going well. Just, I had a bit of irritability in my tongue.
yeah, that's because you're speaking to me and Naomi.
Get there.
And how does it work? Like, if you're on a 7.5 dose right now, what would be the next to go down to?
So, initially, I was going down by a certain, we do it in percentages.
Okay.
So I'm following what's called the Ashton Manual. It was developed by this doctor, Dr. Ashton. I believe
I
she's
wouldn't have
American.
guessed.
Biex I found it was a real coincidence. You're not going to find it easy.
Issa.
So I was lucky I came across it. I had shown it to my psychiatrist. He hadn't even heard about it himself.
Istra.
And we said, let's look into it. We met again, and he said, listen, this is verified, this is really good, let's do it. And it's a slow taper plan. You taper off the medication slowly. And typically you shouldn't reduce more than 10% of your current dose.
Okay.
That's the basic principle of the Ashton Manual. So right now, for example, my last cut was at 6.25%. Like, it's quite...
Okay.
Like, so I'm at 7.5 milligrams right now. I'm planning to go down to 7 now. So I'll just reduce 0.5 of a milligram. What's a bit hard in that sense is the pill. How are you gonna remove that part off? So what I'm doing now is I'm shaving it. Literally.
Okay.
Istra.
Yeah, man, I had to buy a scale. I was like, what am I doing? I was like, can you buy me a scale? It's like, for what? Like my meds.
Istra. And it must take time as well to stay sort of measuring and making sure
certainly.
everything.
Yeah, like if I know, like I take my pills in the morning, 7, 8 in the morning, and then always 7 in the evening. If I know that I'm going to be out at 7, I prepare it beforehand.
Yeah.
What happens if you miss one by accident?
I've never missed one. I don't know what happens.
I don't think it's
I
easy
don't
to
know.
just like make that mistake.
Yeah,
Speak
like-
like it's a birth control pill or something. Like,
Not gonna lie, there was this one time I was abroad and I misplaced it. I misplaced my meds. It was bad. I still took the meds, just like 3 or 4 hours later. And it was really bad. I was about to have a seizure, basically.
Istra.
So it's quite...
So even if
immediate.
it's just I can't tell it, it's immediate. Istra, if it was just 3 or 4 hours.
Because the problem is my body's dependent. So it's just constantly there saying, time for meds. Like, let's go. What can you do, man? I don't know.
how do you feel now that like actually, from the way I'm seeing you, it's like obviously you said that there were certain years of your life where you felt like they were almost but like they were almost taken away from you because essentially nothing was in your control from the sense of like how you felt, what you were putting in your body. You were having certain side effects, you had no idea where they were coming from. And now slowly, okay, it's been a while, but slowly, you're moving into a direction where you're going to regain that full control of your life. How does that, it must be exciting as much as it is challenging. How do you look forward to getting there?
I already feel empowered. The fact that I even managed to start getting off the medication when all these doctors were telling me don't do it, so you have to stay on them, they're not, you can't get off them. The fact that I made that decision to do it, that was really empowering for me.
It's fucking brave. It's very fucking brave.
Yeah, like
that's right. But I did feel very empowered. For once I was like, okay, the ball's in my court. I still go to my psychiatrist, but it's more of like, listen, I'm gonna do this. Do you approve? It's more of that. It's not tell me what to do, please, because I have no idea. I'm not leaving all of this to someone. It's more like he's guiding me, because at least I know what I'm doing. I have this manual that I'm following, and it's very subjective. So I don't just follow what's on the manual. I barely look at it, to be honest. It's more on if I see that I'm doing okay, then I know that I can make the next reduction. I also know that my body, me, Tiffany Camilleri, like after 2 weeks, it starts acting up. Other people, after 3 weeks, it acts up for them. Yes, so you have to know your shit. You have to know, like, you have to look up the stuff.
You have to know your body
yourself.
as well.
Yes, you have to listen to your body.
Like if you had to give advice to people who are in the stage you were when you were 14 and they're like, okay, something's a little bit off, I want to speak to a professional. What advice would you give them over there?
To get on the meds, you mean?
No, as in like, if they go to a psychiatrist and they get a certain diagnosis and they get certain prescriptions.
And maybe like they feel something is off even with the prescriptions, but since like how you were a minor, like there isn't much they can do.
I would say...
Sort of what would you tell your younger self?
As that.
Okay. I would definitely say speak to your doctor, speak to your support system as well. If you can get a second opinion, that's always great.
I feel like especially if, sorry to stop here, but I think that's quite a big one, especially if you're unsure of what's going on around you, unsure of what meds you're taking, and suddenly like everything's shifting and you're being told to take this and this and this. That second opinion could change everything. That could be so important.
And let's face it, when you're vulnerable, sometimes you don't make the best decisions for yourself. So it's not always about do what you want. It's important to get help from your loved ones, your doctor, a second opinion ideally, and research what you're taking. So if they tell you take this pill, don't just blindly say yes to it. See what it is, at least know the name and what drug class it is, if it's an antidepressant, if it's a benzodiazepine.
And literally how long you should be taking it for, because if you knew that benzos are meant to be taken for only like a certain amount of weeks, that would have changed things if you knew that earlier.
I mean, certain things should come from the doctor.
Yes,
there has to be an element of informed consent. And that's something I really, really try to push on. There has to be informed consent, because just because I said yes to the drugs at that age doesn't mean I didn't know what I was taking. I just said yes because based on what they told me, which was really limited. Had I known the full picture, maybe I would have said yes later or said yes to a less amount, you know?
Exactly.